First up is Gabriel. So it's pretty impressive just the amount of animation you've done. It's actually too much. Like you should probably just try to do a shorter piece and do less. I think that, you've got this great reference here. I might try to get a little closer to that. So, look at the shape of her spine and how it changes. I mean, I guess you did a little bit of that, but somehow I think one thing is that if you look at, her butt kind of sticks out further. If you look at how her butt of your character looks like it's kind of lining up with the back of the shoes, but in the reference it sticks out. Here's the back of her shoes and here's her butt, and you can see that what that's doing is helping counterbalance the weight of the thing she's lifting, and that gets to be pretty important for something like this. And kind of looking at head tilt and sort of shape of spine and stuff there. Um, One thing, when you play Blast, you should hide everything from polygon, except for polygons. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to Maya. So here I am in Maya, and yeah, before you play Blast, just go show none, show polygons, and it'll be much cleaner. So let's just look at it in here. So for this, let me just show the nerves curves again. Let's take this root and let me go back to this keyframe. See how much it lets us move this back. It looks like I'm pulling the hands off pretty quickly of the bar, so there's a limit to that. So if I'm going further back, at some point I need to do something else. But one of the things I would do is, which it doesn't look like you use these at all, the spinal controls and even this waist control. So once I'm more curled there, and by the way, make sure these are keyframed because I think some of them did not have keyframes. So that gives me more kind of a leeway to sort of push it back without overextending her arms. And so now I'm getting that thing. I think the rig is not holding up that well with being that severely bent. But so do I have auto keyframe turned on? Let's turn that on just to make sure. Let's set the keyframe there. Okay. So let me go back to your camera. I mean, to me that actually already looks a little bit better. I think that, well, I guess the other thing is, whoops, let me go back, sorry, let me go back to the perspective view. How is this working? Did you animate this thing totally separately, or is it parented to one of the, so what I probably would have parented this guy to one of the hands. I'm not sure. Some reference, I guess. Free weight, maybe? Is that what this is? Floor, wall, ceiling, tight. I'm just turning a lot of these things off. Oh, okay, there it is. All right. Um, so I might take, let's go back to our first keyframe here. Might take that and this, scoot that back. One thing you want to do when you're lifting is you want to have stuff as close to the center of gravity as possible when you start lifting. So I'm just going to hit S to make sure I got a keyframe there. And I'll probably take out some of these keyframes. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I think I probably don't need that one. Whoa. Probably going to have to take out a bunch of these. I guess what I'm going to say to do is parent it to one of the hands. So, and just so take out all the keyframes of this. So, I mean, what else does this thing do? Like it does, you'll have to kind of redo that animation there. But I think it's just going to move with it so much better. So, I'm just going to delete these out just for this purpose of this. And we're over here on this side. Right mouse click, reveal selected. And there's that group right there. So that's the child, this is parent P. So now, wait a minute. Why didn't that move with it? Oh, because that wrist is not moving up. Did I accidentally delete the keyframes off that wrist too? No. Oh, so okay, so that's not so great. So, you should animate these as well. It looks like you just let them get kind of pulled by the body. So I might like wait till it gets close to straightened out, but then yeah, make sure these two guys are selected and start to animate these moving up as well. Maybe, I mean, hold on, let me see how long I can wait on these. Yeah, I think starting here, so I might set just another keyframe to hold it there, and then here we'll start kind of moving this up. And then I might, just do that and see how that works and just see how many I need in between. Probably keep these arms a little bit more extended, like so. Oh, I thought I got rid of all the keyframes on that thing. Or is that I did. What's doing that? Is this thing going back down? Yes, it is. So I'm gonna, up until maybe here, let's replace that one. So I'm going to this keyframe. I'm just gonna middle mouse click on this one and hit S, and that'll like replace that one. And then I just have to delete this one, and they'll stay up there. Anyways, I can't, redo the whole thing, but I really think that you should do that. And then the thing to do when you parented something like this and you want to drop it, does she does a second lift? I might just do one lift. But let's just pretend, just for fun, let's pretend you want to. Why is it just suddenly jumping down there? Oh, this one also needs to do that same thing, middle mouse click, S, and get rid of that. Delete. Okay. So and then they move down. Why do they jump down like that though? I'm just going to select this and middle mouse click here and set a keyframe. Hey. I feel like that's on a fractional keyframe. I'm going to right mouse click and go to snap. See if that was... I think it might have been on a fractional keyframe. I'm not sure why it's suddenly jumping down like that. Let's make sure both of these are selected and middle mouse click here, and S, and that should hold those. Are you switching to FK here or something? Not sure what's going on. I'm not sure why suddenly those things move down when I've got them here. Middle mouse click here. Set keyframe. It shouldn't be changing between those two, but it is. Let's see what's happening in the graph editor. Between these two, there certainly is some major change there. I don't know why. If I go there, and then middle mouse go here, and then middle mouse click here, it should update the position without updating the animation. That should overwrite it, but that's not happening. Let's try copy paste. Right mouse click, copy, go to next keyframe. There's like another little keyframe in there. That's what's messing stuff up. There's like two keyframes right on top of each other. Because when I see that 152.04 and then 152, I need to get rid of that one. So I'm just going to select over this and snap and see what happens. Okay, you had to skip it because, jeez. So I'm just going to just delete both of these because that's messing me up. And then just go back to this one and middle mouse click here and hit S. Because we had a fractional keyframe on there and then there was two right on top of each other. Okay, let's see what's happening in this view now. Okay, so the point of this story was, after all that, I'm going to move this back a little bit. I know this isn't exactly what you had animated, but let's say we wanted to drop this here. I just wanted to show you a method to do that. So this is called some long name. Wilson motion weights. Okay. And I'm going to duplicate that and call this 2 or something like that. And let's say this is the frame I want to drop it. So I'm going to Shift P and hit that a couple times and motion weights 2. So just kind of set a keyframe here, set a keyframe here, and that's not going to look great, but you know you'll get the point of the exercise here. So let's say that's it dropping, because this one's not parented, right? I can't drop the one that's parented to his hand because you know it would move on the ground while it's still parented. So I have to drop this one. I'm just using my up arrow to select it. So the idea is that on this frame I'm going to, which is frame 124, I'm going to animate the visibility. So on the frame before this, we'll turn visibility off, which is 0. And then on this frame, it's suddenly on. And then we'll do the opposite for this one. So for this one, what do we say, 120? I think 124, it's keyed on, and then 125, it's off. So what you get then is this kind of it's some trickery, but it moves. So it's parent. There's two different ones. The one that's parented to the hand moves perfectly with it while she's moving, and then when you're ready to drop it, you just swap the visibility, and then you have that one independent. So that's how I would go about that. Um, but let's look at some of the other animation. Here, um, you'll want to. So see how she's sitting. That's if you try to sit like that, you would sort of fall. So what you would tend to do is like, kind of either put a hand on the ball to brace yourself, or put a foot sort of back, here to kind of counterbalance as she sits down. Um, if you get, I'm doing that really rough, but hopefully you get the idea. And then again, make sure you're posing everything, the fingers and all that stuff, because that stuff really counts. So let's go back to this and see what else is happening here. Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of good stuff here. One thing is when you're walking, you really want to switch to FK arms. Um, so um, the control for that is right here. And, if FK I play IK blend, have you already done that at some point? No, it's always stays 10. Whoops. So, at some point, probably like in between shots, because there's like a cut here, what I might say is, you know, like maybe you want sometime after she braces her hands, because the IK is helping there, but sometime between there and like when she starts walking, you could key this, and then um, I'll get rid of those. And then, by the time it gets here, well, maybe you want to do the touchpad thing there with IK. So I'll just key that one more time. But then switch to FK. And the point of that is that it's, whoops, you get a much easier arm swing. So it's way easier to swing the arm sort of naturally if you're using FK, where it's really hard to do with the IK. And is there anything else we need to? I think that's it. So yeah, I guess, and so my final point would be that I think you might want to narrow this down to a portion of this because it's just extremely ambitious. It's very long animation. I'd rather have, if this whole thing's over 30 seconds, I'd rather have 15 seconds where you like painstakingly, lovingly got everything right than 30 seconds where, you haven't posed the fingers or gotten the balance right or those kinds of issues. So it's really good work. It's you've done a lot of work, but there's still more. There's a lot of improvements you could do, and I'd like to see this. It's got really good potential, so I'd like to see you keep going on it. Okay, next up is Jose. So yeah, it's a good start. I think it's an interesting pose to start with. Um, it's feeling a bit slow the way he stands up and slides his leg up. Um, and I kind of want him to brace like this hand on something or maybe this hand on this knee to help push himself up because he's in such a low position. And it's just the way he stands up feels just generally a bit slow. Also, I feel like you need to get the spine joints involved a little bit more because his torso really stays very straight, and I think he would use his spine to kind of. It's like he's just sort of pivoting from his root without bending his spine to kind of accommodate for that, like as if his spine is rigid and didn't rotate or bend much, and I think you need to get into those controls more. Um, and I think there's sort of off balance moments where, somewhere around here, it's kind of hard to imagine him really keeping that much weight, especially certainly by here. I don't think he could be really keeping much weight on this foot, and with the root centered here, he would tend to kind of fall over that way. So I would say that as he's lifting this foot up, you should take the root and shift it more over that foot, so that kind of leg is holding the weight as he pulls this one up. You need to do some hand poses, and you've got kind of a funny jerk of the head there, which it's not necessarily wrong to jerk stuff around when it's appropriate, but right there it looked a little out of place. Um, So yeah, and kind of getting your set in here, I think, is going to be important. Where is he standing? Is there anything for him to grab on nearby, or just enough kind of have a floor and a wall at least? Just have your some kind of set in there, so we have a little bit more perspective on him. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a start, but I think you have a ways to go, and it's pretty. 5 seconds is on the short side. If I got 5 seconds of brilliant animation, that could be an A, but this looks, to me like kind of early stages. So, um, yeah, I think you've got, you know, a ways to go to get this to look really good. Okay, next up is Amber. So I think you made some improvements to the cameras, which is good. I think the biggest thing is it's just missing arm and spine animation and head and neck. I think that it's like you've just skipped over those. I guess there's a little bit of neck going on at the beginning there, but there's really no spine and there's no arm or hands at all. And that's really, well, that's really missing. So I kind of, you've got 15 seconds. I'd rather, depending on what time you have, I'd rather get the first half of this or the second half of this really good and finished by the end of this semester than have it where it sort of looks half animated. You know what I mean? Where half of her body hasn't been touched. Let's take a look in the My file a little bit. I'll just take a look at this section here just to have something to focus on. The first thing I noticed, you always want to avoid this here where the leg is overextending, where it's pulling beyond the control. So like right in the middle there, let's zoom in a little bit. Um, um, I'm going to add another keyframe here. The other thing you can do actually at the beginning is you could use the roll and roll up. So that'll get you kind of part of the way there. So you get that kind of push off there, which is nice. But then maybe certainly by here where there's already a keyframe, you're going to want to kind of lift that so it just had at least a little bit of a bend in the knee. And then you've got the rest of the movement there. And the roll's already at 0, which is good. So that's looking a little bit better now. I still think it maybe overextends somewhere in the middle here, so you might need to, throw another frame in there. I kind of don't like how it's still overextending there. Maybe I just need to have that one further up and take this one out, and then maybe it won't overextend in the middle. Yeah, that's better. And for this, you're intersecting that surface there, so you might want to have a frame where you pull it back a little bit. And you can also use your, this guy to point the knee outward. If you, whoops, that's the wrong one. It's this one. Yeah, I mean, okay. I'm not absolutely loving it, but it's. I feel like that's getting better. Probably here, somewhere in this, you probably want to rotate that as well down. So it's been a little bit better. Okay, then the arms. So I think at some point, maybe around, it'd be nice when you're walking from here to here that the arms are in FK mode, but from this point forward, I'm gonna delete all the keyframes on the IK FK switch. Actually, I need to see my full timeline here. Just hold down Shift and click and drag, and let's delete all those. Because maybe between here and say here, I'll switch to IK, and then we need to get these controls over here. Just hold down V and middle mouse drag to get those close. Ah, and you've got loads of cubes. That's the wrong side. I'm just getting that close and then I'll fine tune it. But this actually, these. Sorry. There we go. What's going on with the hand? It's just overextended and rotated around, which is fine. So these IK controls have loads of keyframes on them, but I don't, except for right here, it looks like you've got some. Oh no, that's probably what I just did right now. So yeah, so those, there's no real information on those. Ooh. Show none, show polygons, show nerves, curves. So we don't need any. We're going to blow all these away. That stuff's meaningless. So, oh sorry, so now I have to move these back. Oh, I need to do it on this one too. Just double click and then delete. Okay, because those particular controls didn't have any useful keyframes on them. So now, that's just to get it started in a decent position. And it's interesting how it's rotated around like that, but. And also the pull vector locators need to be in a better spot. Just getting them close. Okay, which one's which here? Can't read the name. That's the left one. So I think that, and that's the right one. Aha. Okay, that's looking better. Okay, so those are, getting close to position behind the elbows. And alright, so, oh yeah, and these two, we should delete all their keyframes because those are all meaningless right now. Great. Alright, so let's see where we're at. So there's that, a pretty quick transition between those two, but let's just, you haven't really, what I would do for these is probably get her. You've got like loads of keyframes here. Maybe this is here or something like that. Set a keyframe. Maybe this is going to be the first hand that we actually try to set down on this thing. Maybe on this lower one. No, you can't reach that either. Let's just start it there. And then maybe by, that frame, maybe she, oops. I should take out one of these. Yeah, maybe by this frame actually. It's on there. I'll take out that one. So she's overextended here, so let's take a look at these. I'm wondering if you've got all these keyframes on here, but very little actual animation, so, you're not going to lose anything by just blowing away all this. Well, really, let's see what frame that stuff happens at. 286. Even everything we see in the timeline here, you don't even need because there's no real information there. So, um, maybe set keyframe. Just make sure I have all three of these selected here, and get these to rotate in. So she's got, because she's probably going to try to stay a little closer to the stairs. And I'll zero these out somewhere like here. So, anyways, you're starting to see. I'm not going to animate the whole thing, but and also you'll want to pose the fingers as well. And again, you've got all this animation on there, but there's no. If we look at the graph editor, yeah, there's pretty much. Maybe there's some changes in the middle there, but I'm just going to blow that away as well, just to get all those keyframes out of the way because there's nothing on there. But we could get some, just at least get a more natural pose, and then yeah, maybe when this hits, is that where the keyframe is for that? It's going to be tilted back a little bit to sort of accommodate that. You could really get in there and do a nicer pose with the fingers, but just get that thumb to kind of do something useful. And again, if you have stuff that's all static, that there's no animation on, you can just blow those away. I hope this gives you an idea. I mean, this would take too long to really do too much, but let's get those arms involved. And definitely when you're climbing the ladder, for that portion of the animation at least, you're going to want them to be IK. So I hope this was helpful and get you a start. But I think, again, this whole thing is how many keyframes? Like, um, is it like 400, or 300? So like 30 seconds or something? Or what's that? 10 seconds? No, I don't know. But it can be shorter. You don't have to have this long of animation. You might want to pick your favorite portion and really get in there and really adjust all the controls for each pose. Get rid of, you might, if you have like static tracks of animation like that where they're keyframed every pose, but there's actually no changes to that item on that pose, then just blow it away and start keyframing it in there. So just start getting into the detail for at least one section of this. Like I said, I'd rather have 5 seconds of excellent animation by the end than 10 or 20 or 30 seconds of kind of unfinished looking animation. More. Next up is Jessica. Okay, so let's actually look at this in Maya. So first of all, for all of this, you've really just animated like the neck, head, shoulders, and elbows, and you got to get the rest of the body into this. You can't just leave all that stuff still for all those poses. You kind of need to go back over all those poses. The other thing is their problem with the walk is that you need to turn on IKFK. So I'm just going to delete these keyframes on those two. Just double click the timeline and then right mouse click delete. Wait, there's still keyframes on there. I'm just going to delete from here, which will get rid of all of them. And you're going to want those to be FK. So you lose the movement you did before, but now when you move, also you shouldn't animate using this I thought I made that clear in previous videos. Um, don't animate that. Um, so yeah, you're just gonna have to do that movement again. And when you want to take a step, well, let's just do this. Let's say do a step to reach that object or something. So you'll use this guy. Not the circle at the base is just going to get the character to its start point. So there's no animation on this right now, so I can again get rid of all of this. So yeah, I mean you've really left most of the controls alone. You should be adjusting each control every pose, but most of them aren't touched for most of the poses in this animation. So anyways, feet in IK mode, um, you know, and then the root should definitely be adjusted regularly. So if I want to take a step, like let's just use an example here. Let's say he's going to take a step. I'm going to set a keyframe there, and then let's set one. I'm just moving both of those at the same time. I have both of them selected. Actually, I might rotate them both too. So now I've got that movement there, and now I might select just this guy and lift it up. Whoops, actually, sorry, deselect that one and lift this up. Um, and so now he's stepping and his feet are sticking to the ground. That's not very good, but because I think this foot should be a little bit ahead of the body, so I'm going to shift click and drag on that and move that, earlier a little bit. So now he starts moving his foot first and then follows with the body. And then, I could go to this foot, set a keyframe, go forward here, move this, say to there or something, set another keyframe, and then kind of lift it up in the middle. I'm just doing this real rough, but just to give you kind of the basic. So now he's stepping over to that. And then he can, bend down and pick that up. So yeah, I think that the really big things are adjust every control or nearly every control, every pose. Legs in IK. Don't animate this circle. Move them with this guy and move the feet. And I think you kind of need. I think you just kind of need to do another pass of the whole thing with that now. And if you have like these long areas of just static animation, like you will on most of these controls, where oh, okay, well that one there's at least a little bit of animation on, but most of them, there's. If we look at the graph editor, you can see. I guess it's flat up until here. Like you don't need all those. You're not going to need all the keyframes up until there, so you can just boom, just delete those out. Or do it from the timeline here. Either way. So yeah, take another pass with those things in mind. Okay, next up is Eddie, and yeah, I think from your description, it doesn't really resemble that scene. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying here, but they're sort of being moved around, much like sort of like action figures, like you're moving the whole body, but not much of the controls. And I think you've chosen to do something much too ambitious. I think if you could just get one character jumping down, that would be great. But right now, I think if you watch the last video, all the same things would go for that. Also, that the timing it's just everything is happening so fast, so the timing is way off. Um, but again, do not animate that circle. That's just to put the character in their starting position. Then switch the feet to IK mode. You need to change those, select those guys and put it in IK mode. Then really work on each pose, like lovingly work on every pose so that you've touched and adjusted probably every control on the character, every pose. So, and also, look at the timing. Look how it's just kind of really fast and jerky movement. So, I really think on this one you just need to start over. I don't think you can use what you have here. I don't think it's going to help you. And just take your time with the poses. Start with one pose. Really get the character in its start pose. Adjust every control, every finger, the neck, the spine. Think about where the root is, how he's balanced, all of that stuff. Making sure that the feet are in IK and making sure you're not moving that blue circle at his feet at any point. And then just don't try to do anything with two characters. It's too much. There's not enough time. So I think you really need to take a step back and simplify this.